A worm is a form of self-replicating malware. Worms can not only infect a target computer, but then they can replicate themselves across a network connection to other devices. Once a worm infects a network, it can spread very rapidly. And at that point, perimeter defenses like firewalls, perimeter firewalls, won't do anything to protect the network against the worm. So once a worm gets into a network, it can be very devastating for that network, and it can spread incredibly quickly. I'm talking within a matter of seconds. Worms will use different network protocols. They might use a form of software, or they might use email to perform their replication and to send themselves to different devices. Because they can spread so quickly, they can be incredibly destructive. Some famous examples include in 2000, you had the I love you worm. And this worm would send a message to all of the contacts in a recipient's Outlook contacts list. So when it did that, it sent an email. So it used email to replicate itself. And the email would have I love you within the subject line. That's why it's called the I love you worm. And this worm spread so rapidly. It's a little sad, I think, because people were thinking, oh, maybe somebody really cares for me. I better open this email, see who it is, and it's really just a virus or a worm. Kind of a shame. Anyway, WannaCry was discovered in 2017, and this used an exploit created by the National Security Agency, or NSA, U.S. agency. They had an exploit called Eternal Blue, okay, and that allowed the NSA to tap into different network connections across the internet. So WannaCry discovered this, or the hackers behind WannaCry discovered this Eternal Blue, and then they used it to send a worm. So it really didn't look very good for the NSA. And what the worm did is it conducted ransomware attacks. So it infected the target device, and then it would encrypt all the files on that device and then send a message to the user saying you need to pay us in cryptocurrency, or you need to pay us this amount of money, or we're going to keep your files encrypted. And this caused millions of dollars in damages. The Morris worm was developed in 1988. This is an older worm, but it's a worm you should know about. It's kind of a famous example. So it's developed by a Cornell student as an internet sizing tool. Okay. So Morris developed the worm. He thought he could measure the size of the internet with his tool. But the problem was the tool worked as intended, but it could infect a computer multiple times. So when it infected a computer, the same computer can be infected with the worm over and over again. And then it would use all the system resources on that computer to perform this internet sizing survey, and it would basically crash the computer. So the Morris worm was the first worm to gain widespread media attention, and it kind of put the public awareness, or raised the public awareness for types of internet attacks. Before then, people didn't really know that these types of attacks could occur, or really they didn't know much about the internet at all. Remember, this is 1988. So how do you combat a worm? Well, once a worm infects your network, it's pretty difficult. You're going to need a trained incident response team that can move quickly and segment different areas of your network to try and prevent the spread of that worm. Once it's in your network, host-based devices, host-based firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, intrusion detection systems can help you slow the worm and prevent it from spreading further. Remember, perimeter devices, once a worm has infected your network, aren't going to help. A perimeter firewall is going to do nothing. And keeping your operating system up to date, keeping software up to date, that is all going to help against worms that the security community already knows about. Remember, there's still zero-day exploits, and no amount of updating can protect against those. But to protect against known worms and known attacks, keeping your system up to date, keeping your operating system up to date is still an excellent idea.